I was always chasing the next big campaign, the next cover, whatever it is, and structure my life around that. So meaning, as you get judged from the way you look, you have to look a certain way.
Right.
And that became kind of my life. So with that said, I felt very empty inside, let's say that way.
Okay.
For the longest time of my life, because in this industry, very few people actually care for who you are as a person. They care the way you look, the connections you have, and how much success you have. And that's pretty much it, and that's what I was surrounded with. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I asked my mom on a bike ride, I was like, why am I here in this body and what's my purpose? This aha moment, as I said last year when I had this injury, and then I connected with Human Garage. Gary became a really good friend and mentor of mine, the founder of Human Garage. And I had a one-on-one session with a practitioner. And in the session, I felt I almost walked into a new identity of myself, but also in the portal where I felt really connected to myself. And then this was a triggering moment where I was, if I can do it for myself, I can do that for other people. And then eventually led to a point where I learned so much from over my life from different mentors. There was like, okay, now I can look at it and put something together that's from myself in a sense. And it is all parts of different things, whether it's breath, whether it's fascia maneuvers, whether it's just nervous system regulation. And that's really when I came up a couple of months ago with mindful movement. And the goal is to give people a tool where they can open a door. This tool helps them walk into the room. And if they keep using this tool, the tools I'm giving them, then they can build out this room, which is their life, as large and as beautiful as they want. And then from that place, they can do whatever they like. Meaning, if someone wants to go to get really good in deadlift, someone wants to go running, you should be able to do anything you want. It's more getting yourself back to a baseline. I just want to make people believe that they can do anything they want. And when you feel something through the breath, you start believing it. When you feel something through fascia maneuvers, you start believing it's actually possible. Okay. So the less stress you have in your body, the more you're able to connect to your higher self, to your intuition, to God, and you'll find your purpose.
All right, you guys, welcome to the Dreamrun podcast. This is episode 14. We have Jules, and how do I pronounce that? Horn.
Yeah, like the horn.
How do I pronounce your first name?
Jules. Actually, my real name is Jürgen.
Yeah,
but I go by Jules because
Jules Horn.
Yeah.
Really simple and straightforward. We got a lot of stuff we want to talk to him about. It's hard for me to exactly define, what you do, but you are, in the process of building a business. I kind of came across some stuff. You were a model at one point.
Yeah, still signed with agencies,
Still signed. Okay, so that's some stuff I wanted to kind of ask you about, but thanks so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, so some of the stuff, really, I do this out of a passion, just wanting to talk to people I'm interested in what they're doing and what's going on. Maybe I can learn something. And hopefully it can just help. Maybe it helps one person out there. That'd be cool too.
We don't have a job, right?
But it's fun for me,
Exactly. Oh, amazing. Thank you.
So, yeah, if you don't mind, we were just talking about your business and stuff, which is exciting. And I like the shirt a lot. That the gear looks good. But maybe before that, how did you end up where you are now, in a sense, with all this? So I can
give you a little bit of entire background.
Perfect.
Story. So I'm German originally.
Sure, okay.
So I grew up in the south of Germany, Bavaria. Son of a butcher, and my mom was working in a bakery. I'm one out of four. Okay. I have a twin sister and an older sister and a younger sister. I finished school when I was 16 and started working as an industrial mechanic for 7 years, actually. Because it's just what you do, I kind of always had this drive to do something bigger, but my parents, there was not a lot of money. We never really traveled. And I wasn't the smartest in school. At least I didn't put in the work. I was always someone who's like, okay, as long as I can get by with what I'm doing, I don't have to put much effort in it. Mm-hmm. And my twin sister, she's just very gifted with languages. And so she there's 3 different schools, kind of similar to what it is here in the States. So the lowest school, you go to school for 8 years, and then you have like 10 years, and then the last one, it changed from 13 to 12 years. So I was in the second one. And once you graduate from that school, you either go get an office job or you work with your hands, in a sense, you know.
Right.
So I was always good with my hands and interested in mechanics and so forth. So I started that when I was 16. Had a, you know, it was okay. It's just what do you do, you know. I didn't really, looking back, it was just, I didn't really love going there 9 to 5 every day. Would start working at 7, finish at 3:30 or something, and then I started working for the company in service. So we travel throughout mostly Germany, but it was in Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, and actually worked in power plants and nuclear power plants. The company I worked for, they produced industrial pumps. Okay. So I would service them and work on them. So it was basically there to cool down the water system around the nuclear
reactors and stuff.
Reactors, exactly.
Interesting.
Which, you know, looking back now, it's insane because I know by now how bad radiation is for you, and it's an invisible enemy you don't really see, you know.
Interesting.
And obviously back then everyone was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." There was a limit you can only reach, so we would have this meter on us, and throughout the year you're only allowed to get an X amount of radiation. So and then we're like, "Oh, there's nothing gonna happen. You don't have to worry." Meanwhile, throughout the 3 years I was working in that part of the company, 3 of my older colleagues who were in the 50s, one of them died from leukemia, and 2 others developed cancer.
That's really young.
And it was very, very common in this field, you know. So I stumbled across, I was a big drinker because my parents got divorced when I was 18. And when that happened, I just went crazy. Kind of understand now it was just running away from the pain.
Right.
Numbing it out in a sense. I would go every weekend I would be blackout drunk twice. And then during the week I was away for work. So every night with my older colleagues who are all in their like 50s to 60s, it was just very normal for them to drink every night because it's just part of their life. So I would drink every night at least like 3-4 beers.
Wow. Okay.
And then there would certain times be where we had shots every night, you know. So with that said, I remember I made good money for where I'm from. As I said, I don't come from any money, but I made good money for the traveling. They reimbursed us really well, and I would go on really expensive vacations. It was the only thing I was looking forward to. I had 2 friends who were very wealthy from the parents. So there was one time, 2011, I came the first time. I just turned 21, and we went to America the first time ever.
Cool.
We flew to New York, and then to Vegas, and then Jamaica. And it ended up being just a full-on blackout drunk trip. Every day, like we would drink every night, every day, every night. So there was one point towards the end in Jamaica, I was in a pool, and I was like, this is crazy. I was sitting there by myself. I had this aha moment in a sense where it was like, you hate your life, your day-to-day job you don't actually enjoy. You spend money on crazy vacations, and you only really live for the weekends and for the vacation. So this triggered a change within myself, and then I went back home, and a friend of mine, she was part-time modeling, and she was like, you should try modeling.
Okay.
So I got my shit together a little bit, sent out some pictures, signed with an agency, and then for a 1.5 2 years I was part-time modeling because I had a very flexible job. And then I met my ex-girlfriend back then, and she was 6 years older. And she was like, if you don't stop drinking, it's not going to last. So then I moved to Munich, left my hometown, this village, and started full-time modeling. My first trip was to South Korea and did a lot of things. So make a long story short, I ended up in New York 2016. I came to New York, got discovered by one of the biggest photographers back then, Bruce Weber. And then I signed with one of the biggest agencies, and my career just took off from one day to another.
And which agency would that have been?
Soul Artist Management. I'm still signed with them. And yeah, you know, I had a great career. I worked with Chanel. I met Karl Lagerfeld and shot with Bruce Weber, was on covers, and Ralph Lauren, Louis Vuitton, all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was a great career, but...
Nice. And how many years? So that New York would have been like mid-20s?
So 2016 to like...
16.
To 2021, I was in New York. I made some decisions that didn't help my career, meaning I listened to the wrong people, then left my agent, moved to a different one, moved around. And then the industry is so small once you have hit a certain level, where then it becomes all about relationships, as it kind of is with everything in life. So I burned some bridges.
Okay.
And my career didn't go anywhere anymore. And I was holding on to that because I understand now with the work I'm doing now, it was all about validation. So big part of it was the ego.
Okay.
So you want to be validated. Oh, I was always chasing the next big campaign, the next cover, whatever it is, and structure my life around that. So meaning as you get judged from the way you look, you have to look a certain way.
Right.
That became kind of my life. So with that said, I felt very empty inside, let's say that way. For the longest time of my life, because in this industry, very few people actually care for who you are as a person. They care the way you look, the connections you have, and how much success you have. And that's pretty much it. And that's what I was surrounded with for 10 years, pretty much.
And a couple follow-ups. So not to go completely into that story, because I want to speak to you about a lot of the work you're doing now. But one of the follow-ups would be, to comb over, what was the bad advice you took? What was the lesson you learned? Like, I'm just curious about that.
So it was pretty much I grew up, my parents, number one thing always they taught me was to never change, no matter how successful you are, and to be nice and loyal. Okay. So, and one of the things I pretty much broke was being loyal. Okay. So me leaving my agent because I had different voices in my ear from other people saying you need to be with a big agency. So I signed with IMG Models, which is the largest agency in the world till this day, I believe. So
I've heard of that.
I burned a bridge with my old agent, who is one of the best agents, if not the best men's agent in the industry. Definitely one of the top 3.
He was upset when you left.
Very upset, like on a
because he was with you for your career. You guys were friends, all this different stuff.
So that was one thing. Looking back, I wouldn't do that again.
Sure.
This was a big learning lesson. But as we grow older and as we understand more what life is all about, you make those mistakes.
Sure.
To make a long story short, I ended up re-signing with him because I made an amends,
realized,
and told him what it is, and he was happy to take me back. But I had a drive within myself always to just like, my goal has always been to be there for other people and help them in some form. First of all, become the best version of myself so I can show up for myself, but more so for others. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I repeat myself, always tell this story because it's very vital for me. I asked my mom on a bike ride, I was like, why am I here in this body and what's my purpose? And, I come from a very simple background.
That is a wild question. I'd be thinking about it.
And I think about this. It feels like it was yesterday. And I thought about this throughout my childhood. I remember that. Nobody could answer that, because in Germany I was supposed to work in the same job till I'm 65, 68 and then retire, and then you start living. So with that, I broke out of this cycle and I knew I was going to go do the modeling stuff. I did that, moved to New York, had a great time. And I was doing breath coach certifications, nutrition certifications along the way, fitness certifications, help people on that level.
Cool.
And I enjoyed it. But it never really 100% resonated with myself, because in the end of the day, if you teach someone how to eat and how to train, most of it is based around vanity again. It's like, okay, I want to look a certain way. And yes, I want to feel good, but my main drive is I want to have a six-pack, let's say. So I met Kate, who my fiance now, in 2021. And this was kind of like a time I mainly did the training stuff and was really busy and did some modeling, but I felt that New York was home and is always going to be home, but I had the need for a change. So Kate and I, we met. She came to New York. We met on Instagram. She came to New York after talking for a while on FaceTime and so forth, and we hit it off. A week and a half later, I flew to LA, spent some time with her for 3 days. And then 4 weeks later, I packed my stuff and I moved to LA, moved into a house. We moved super fast. And,
cool.
Coming into a new city, being fresh and in love, having the honeymoon phase, I didn't really care that much about work. It was kind of like a lift of my savings, and I signed with an agency here. I was really excited and just fell back into this whole, okay, I'm just going to be a model. So that went on really for 2.5, 3 years, where I was like just kind of struggling, trying to hold on to this dream of becoming the biggest supermodel again, being everywhere. But I ended up chasing it. And as you know, when you start chasing things, you push them away further than you do anything good with it. So the more you care about that in the industry, the more of a desperation energy you have around yourself. And it's almost like clients, agents can smell that. So I became very desperate in a sense. And very not depressed fully, but slightly depressed in a sense where...
Interesting, okay.
Once I hit like I was like 33, 34, I was like, I kind of have to do something with my life. First of all, the number one driver was really taking my life in my own hands. Because if I'm only relying on someone else, if I was relying on work, whether the client likes me or my agent gives me work or not. And most of the time, it's really also not in the agent's hands. It's really about whether the casting director likes you or doesn't like you. So I was making this shift, and it really happened in pretty much a year ago, where I once again just like kept myself busy with working out. And back then I was running a lot, and I got super into running. And again, it was all driven by vanity and ego, being like, okay, it wasn't about the running itself anymore. It was about how much mileage can I do, how fast can I run, and ended up again once more with a physical burnout, which always leads in an emotional burnout as well. Because when I was waking up, we just came back from New York. We were in New York for 3 months. We came back, and we had this guest house in Venice rented. I went for a 2.5 hour run and ended up the next morning couldn't walk anymore, Physically, my lower back was completely shot. And I always had lower back pain since I'm 18, since my parents got divorced, because has a lot to do with emotions. Feeling not supported in your life leads to lower back issues. And then having fear in your body, fear of moving forward in your life, that relates to your bladder. So there's a disconnect between your bladder and your lower back. And I always would get injured deadlifting and so forth, always pushing the envelope too much. So I was in this one of my lowest points in my life, and I was really just like seeking for something else. And a friend of mine 6 months before told me about Human Garage, which is all about releasing the fascia.
Can I just pause you right there a little bit? Because this is definitely where I want to go, but I just want to before we lose sight of this, you talked a lot about just drinking a lot when they split up, and I really, some of the stuff I wanted to ask you about was the connection with the emotion, and I love how you went there with the lower back and everything. But I did want to get back into, you're living this kind of superficial, just having these like really materialistic goals, and in an industry that's just ruthless, right? Like fashion, right? It's just, I think it's probably worse for women, but still, I mean, it's just ruthless.
Well,
for anyone, right?
For anyone in a sense. And the problem is, or the worst part of it is, in this industry, the women make at least 5 times the amount of money.
That too, right?
And as a man, you have to really be like the 0.1%, let's say 0.5%. If there's in the industry on that level there was probably, let's say 500 guys, and 10 of them would make a really good living. Perhaps like 15, 20. But that's about it. And the other ones, it looks all great from the outside, but everyone is struggling with money.
Right. That's right. I've heard about, because what film is that in? Is that the Trilogy of Sadness or that movie? Did you see that one?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you haven't? I think that's talked about a lot in that movie. That's 2 models, couple, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, you haven't seen that? Oh, you should check that out. Okay.
Oh yeah,
the Trilogy of Sadness, or what is it called?
I know exactly which.
It's the 2 models that go on a yacht. They're both,
I know exactly which movie it is, because there's a sad story attached to that.
They get stranded on an island.
Yeah, and because the sad story from my end is the female main lead. She was a friend of mine who's a model too.
Okay.
And she passed away like after 3 years ago. Super sudden. She was healthy, super healthy. They were living in New York. 3 days later, she She woke up with a headache. She went to the hospital. 3 days later, she passed.
Okay.
Out of the blue. And she was about to be a real big actress. Triangle of Sadness.
That's right.
That's a movie.
Triangle.
Yeah, Triangle of Sadness.
So I did want to say, so I had one, I had one experience. I met Giorgio Armani once, and that was really an awesome treat. And, you know, my experience from the outside looking in, I +1 to Paris Fashion Week with my old girlfriend.
Amazing.
And I mean, it was like, I mean, I'm sure it's cutthroat, but on our end, on my side, outside looking in, it was like, I'd never been treated so well.
I know.
You know, they put us in this incredible hotel at the Four Seasons. They gave me all this clothes, like, to wear to one of the shows. And
I know, dude. It's like, I tell you one thing. I traveled the world. I had really good connections. I was everywhere. I was in Paris. It's amazing. It's an amazing life. Would I do that again? If I would do it again, I would do it very different.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, from the outside looking in, it's amazing. But most guys, even the one who work a lot, the number one thing is really you. And I have a really good friend who's an agent too. He's a good friend of mine. It's a different agency. And the number one thing is you have to have a purpose in your life. And we can talk about that more in detail. But when the number one thing is just vanity, it becomes very draining.
Sure.
Because in the end of the day, as a model, like, I know guys, they live on a fucking plane. They fly. One of my friends, he did 300 flights last year or something, or even more.
Wow.
Only on the plane. And yes, you have all those great experiences and you make a lot of money. But first of all, most of the time you don't really spend it with people who care or who you care for. Everyone is nice, because at this level, you surround yourself with nice people.
Right.
But what's the outcome? Meaning, what are we doing to help other people?
Sure.
So for me, it was always like, that's why I'm still signed, and I still want to do that when the right project comes up. But then when I have a project coming up, I have a story to tell. I have a purpose. I'm doing other things. I want to.
Sure.
I can share. I ended up doing that the last couple of years. Meaning, I would be on set, and then all I do is talk about health, wellness, and how can you get yourself out of stress, because everyone is stressed. So it's a two-bladed sword in a sense. Okay,
I did want to ask. Was the drinking, or were you focused enough on your wellness through that time in New York? Or were you still like kind of really up and down? You said
I didn't have so I never went into this whole party and drinking phase with modeling.
Right.
I would have a drink, and I still have a glass of wine or drink sometimes if I want to. But I was very laser focused. Okay. It was really my life. I was beyond healthy, too healthy actually. When I met Kate, she was like, "You got to lose a little bit up." I would not touch. Sure. I would never touch a dessert. I would never touch anything that's quote unquote not so good for you.
Okay.
So I lived in a very tight box. Did I feel good? I thought I did feel good, because when you live in an environment, you create an environment that you control. Correct? So if I'm setting myself up, this is my workout regime, this is my nutrition, this is what I'm doing to feel good. Eventually that becomes your home. So it's good to live in there, and I learned a lot from that. But when your routine and your lifestyle becomes your own prison, so you can't actually explore anymore and enjoy life, that's the opposite what you actually want, you know?
Okay.
So, and that's how I felt a lot of times. So I was vegan for a very long time, super hardcore vegan, and it was always like, this is the only way. So I had this thing where I always would push things to everyone. I would live it, and it's like, you have to live like this, otherwise you'll never get anywhere. Meanwhile, I didn't realize I just put myself in a position where I wasn't fully living.
Okay.
Because a lot of times in my life, I thought I had it all figured out. Meanwhile, now I know nothing in a sense, you know. And this is the mindset shift I did for myself, where you just like, I always say to people, we should never be afraid to start over again and going back to kindergarten in a sense, because it's the fun part. Starting over, starting something new, learning a new skill, learning a new language, whatever it is you want to do, but not being afraid of doing that, because that's really where the growth happens. And then understanding, also looking back and saying, oh, I was actually wrong there. And I did shift things around. For example, I used to always be like, you have to eat oatmeal for breakfast. That's an example. This is the only way. And now I'm like, it might not be as good for you, because I don't believe you have to eat as much food anymore. As the more I evolve on a conscious level, on a spiritual level, the more I understand so many times less is more. And then there's a middle path to walk. And of course you can have breakfast when you want to,
right.
But a lot of times it's also like, what's possible doesn't always mean it's optimal.
So, yeah, let's dive. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you've kind of glazed over. Let's unpack some of the topics. Fasting, or just diet in general. I kind of agree with you. I think different periods of life, depending on kind of where you're at spiritually or just with your, I've noticed different things work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What have you discovered recently with like less is more? What are you doing now? What's working now?
So I always was into intermittent fasting, but at the same time, if you're not connected to your breath and so forth, it creates just more stress. So it's a stressor, but it's a good stressor if your nervous system is regulated. And then I played around over the last 3 years a lot with longer fasting. And the interesting part for me is that the longest I did was 7-day water fasting. And I felt incredible the last 2 days and the days after. And for me, it was like, okay.
In just water or electrolytes or anything
just
like
water
that?
And electrolytes, because you want to have high quality, whether it's a high quality sea salt or electrolyte mixed without sugar and so forth.
Right, because a lot of those have like sugar or different stuff now, right?
Yeah, so I did that and I felt amazing. And the last time I did this 7-day water fast, I actually went into it. I was injured at sciatica and I felt I just need a reset. So I went in the first time ever without the vanity part, meaning I need to lose weight. I was like, for me, I want to connect to myself actually more. So the entire 7 days I pretty much was laying around and walking only.
That's great.
And I had a lot of realizations where it's really about what do we actually need, in our life when it comes to food. So if I can go for an X amount of time without food, a lot of the things that people say to me when I work with people now or meet, they're like, oh, if I don't have breakfast, I don't feel good. So the number one thing is 99% of the people who I see and I work with, they don't really breathe proper. So if someone doesn't breathe, you have a lack of oxygen. So a lot of times that leads into sleep apnea, snoring, just mouth breathing in general. And then you wake up in the morning, you feel exhausted. And the first thing you think you need is food, because food is grounding.
Right.
And so gives you energy, right? So, but what I discovered for myself and everyone else is like, if you sit down in the morning and meditate, or you just lay down and conscious breathe for 20 minutes, you won't be hungry. Or then I started doing the fascia maneuver stuff with proper breathing. Then you actually get more energy than you had before. And I was like, I don't need caffeine as early anymore. I don't need food that early. So there's something to say about that. And then I tried it many times, go back to breakfast, even if I have something like, oh, just eat eggs. It's light. It's not the same. Even if I eat fruit, it's not the same, because it interrupts my digestive system and it interrupts the way my body operates at this point. So there's a lot to say about the longer you walk on the path to self-development, the more narrow it becomes. And that's a good part. And I had to accept that and surrender to that and understand, okay, yes, I still have breakfast some days. If Kate wants to have breakfast, we'll be on vacation. But I pay a price for it in a sense where I'm like, I don't feel as good, as vibrant, and I don't need it in a sense. So that's a big part about what I'm doing now is pretty much I have either cacao, mate tea. Sometimes I have coffee in the morning.
Mate, nice.
It still has caffeine. It still has some form of calories if I put in cacao butter or whatever. But it's all about being more in tune with myself, listening to my intuition. And I know if I tell myself I have to have coffee today and I can smell the coffee and I'm like, no, I shouldn't be drinking it. If I still drink it, I don't feel good. It's an intuitive thing. And this is a part where people struggle with, because when you detach from your emotional body, mind, body, spirit, it's not one, because you have a lack of breath and there's too much stress in the body. You can't listen to your intuition. You listen to everyone but yourself. So this is a big part, and yet I still sometimes fall back into those struggles with, for example, social media. It's all, the guys, they look amazing, they work out and they eat a certain way, and you're like, okay, I feel like I need to eat this way, which is so individualized anyways. That's why I now seek really friends, mentors who done the work on themselves, and then I learn from them, implement it for myself for a little bit, and see how it resonates. And if it doesn't resonate, I'm not following it anymore. Whether it's extreme diets, whether it's everyone is like, you need to eat a lot of protein, for example. I eat meat, I eat everything, but it's more, how much do we actually need? Because what I said earlier, there's a lot to say about what's possible, doesn't mean it's optimal.
When you're not eating right away and we're not going to the coffee right away, you're having to feel what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
With your friends, with your business, with your work, whatever. And sometimes it can be easier to kind of just not go there, right? So it's very integrated, and I see people, I try to look around, and within, what am I not feeling? What am I seeing maybe people not feeling, and not from a place of judgment, just from a place of I don't want to get there, it's just, so I mean, I guess just to speak to that, or I don't know if you had anything, but any tricks yourself, or maybe I'm just having a moment of reflection.
No, I mean, what I feel is, and I've been there, and it's an ongoing learning and journey in a sense, because every day is a little bit different, because we also evolve as people. And I read this book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and then is
that a Dispenza or no?
No, that's Joseph Murphy.
Okay.
He was the first guy who developed it in the, I think, late 1800s or so forth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was really into it. And Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, they all learned from him.
Okay.
And Ken Wilber, are you familiar with him?
I don't think so.
So he's also he's probably one of the smartest people ever lived. He looks at it, and I learned a lot from him, because everyone is talking about growing up and waking up on a spiritual realm. And what he says, what they discovered only over the last 100 years, that's why you can't find it in any scripture, any religion, is you have to clean up before you wake up. So, and the cleaning up is going into whatever emotions is stuck in your body. So I used to have a lot of rage in my body and anger, and it's just got passed on from my father, his father, post World War II, and all this stuff. So I had this anger and this rage within myself. So when I went there, I did a psilocybin ceremony on myself with like 4 grams or something, and I felt like with the intention going into it to just clean up some stuff. And I got a lot of answers, and I do believe in God, so I feel like God connected with me, and just like, it's really about surrendering, and then using whatever anger and rage you have within yourself, or whatever emotion that is stuck, you can turn it into something beautiful and help yourself and other people with it. And then, okay, if I have a lot of anger, rage, so I can let it go and turn it into love, in a sense. But you have to face it first, and that's a part what people struggle with. It's how can I face it?
Right.
And really, that's what I done a lot with people, just going there to the places. I learned from a guy, his name is James Hyman. He's in LA, he's in his 80s. He's been doing emotional release work for over 50 years. And I did a session with him, he did a session with me, and I learned a lot from that. And he's a good friend now, we still in touch and talk a lot. And it's just really, the part of surrendering is the most important thing, and also accepting yourself on a daily basis, because we change, environments change, the world is changing, and we need to be adaptable, and that's also what makes us human. And what's a superpower of every single human on this planet is we are very smart and adaptable. It's not that we have the brain of an animal or a dog or something where you're kind of depending on someone else. It's you can create your life today, whatever you want.
I'm hearing that a lot from you. As you unwind and discover your purpose, you're modeling, so it's like you have the resources to kind of take care of yourself, but then while you're doing it, you're sort of, back from when you're 6 years old, and then you're talking about it now so clearly. Okay, I'm doing this modeling, I'm good to get signed, but this feels more aligned with my purpose.
Yeah.
All this darkness that I've had to kind of turn into face, and then now I want to use that. Like, it's almost like when it comes easy to people, it's harder to teach, because this is the way I am. This is the way it is. I came from this family, and we do this, and we're just pretty free. We're pretty clear.
Yeah.
And it's like, but when it takes you just, day after day after day, it becomes a lot more powerful, and you are able to help others, right, get there.
Yeah, and it's also more relatable in a sense. So I had this aha moment, as I said last year, when I had this injury, and then I connected with Human Garage. Gary became a really good friend and mentor of mine, the founder of Human Garage. And I had a one-on-one session with a practitioner who's a friend now, Arda, in Westlake Village. And in the session, I felt I almost walked into a new identity of myself, but also in the portal where I felt really connected to myself. And then this was a triggering moment where I was, if I can do it for myself, I can do that for other people. So I really devoted my life the month after to just learning about fascia maneuvers, doing it on a daily basis, practicing myself, practicing with friends, family, and then started working with strangers, started hosting a free class every week on the beach, and became just more and more the person I always wanted to be, in a sense. But that just shows when you have your mindset in the right direction and you believe you can do that and you put in the work, then you can do anything. Mm-hmm. Same with my social media. I had 150,000 followers or so when I was modeling. Mm-hmm. And then within less than a year now, I grow over 400,000, but it's because of showing up every day.
I was just going to say, because I was going to say that because I was like, oh, wow, like when we met, I noticed that you had like a big Instagram, but I swear, like, did you just get like 400? Just because I went before the interview, I just wanted to like, there was a reason I wanted to speak to you, because the conversation we had at the restaurant. Yeah. But I was like, okay, these are the top, like these are things I'm interested. Did you just get all those, or did you have those 400?
Well, so as I said, I started with 150,000.
Okay. A year ago,
less than a year ago. And then, but it was all people who just cared for who I look. So it was all fashion-based stuff. Sure. And then I started posting fascia maneuvers, breath, life in general.
Right. Well, I only have followed you for a brief time, so I've only really seen that. But sorry. So
yeah, and then I, in the beginning, obviously I didn't get any likes, views, whatever, but I didn't care, because my goal was really, if I reach one person and can help one person, it's going to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, if one person likes it, there's many, many other people out there. I just have to be persistent and dedicated to it. So I did that.
That's a bold move. You're going from this modeling thing and just
talking
about all this weird stuff, like.
Granted, I had a lot of support from Human Garage, so we did a ton of collaborated posts.
Okay, cool.
But it also was kind of a win-win situation, because I brought in a total different audience, because I look different and I'm a different guy than they are.
Sure.
So we collaborated on a ton of stuff, and then eventually led to a point where I learned so much from over my life from different mentors. There was like, okay, now I can look at it and put something together that's from myself, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And it is all parts of different things, whether it's breath, whether it's fascia maneuvers, whether it's just nervous system regulation. And that's really when I came up a couple of months ago with mindful movement. So moving.
Right, and I see it spelled in a way like a movement, like a healing.
So moving and mending.
Perfect.
So that's a goal. That's the idea, and just bringing people in the mind, body, and connecting to themselves. Mm-hmm. And from that place, I always say my goal with this company, it starts with the coaching program, mm-hmm. nervous system regulation. And the goal is to give people a tool where they can open a door. This tool helps them walk into the room. Mm-hmm. And if they keep using this tool, the tools are giving them, then they can build out this room, which is their life, as large and as beautiful as they want. And then from that place, they can do whatever they like. Meaning, if someone wants to go to get really good in deadlift, someone wants to go running, you should be able to do anything you want. Mm-hmm. It's more getting yourself back to a baseline, which is very, very rare these days, that someone is on a nervous system level really calm, relaxed, so can actually put a load on their body. Okay. And it becomes bigger and bigger, but it's still not as large as we wish it to be, and that's why I want to be a big part of that, and also shaking the world up a little bit in a sense where I just want to make people believe that they can do anything they want. And when you feel something through the breath, you start believing it. When you feel something through fascia maneuvers, you start believing it's actually possible.
Okay.
So the less stress you have in your body, the more you're able to connect to your higher self, to your intuition, to God, and you'll find your purpose.
Okay, very interesting. So, you got hooked up with these human garage guys and started doing that. Okay. Good. That's great news. So it sounds like you're getting momentum and you're reaching, and it sounds like you've helped more than one person if you've, the response has been so good on your pages and stuff like that. Okay, cool. So mindful movement, what does that look like right now when you work with people and stuff? Well, you told me a story when we met, actually. You're working with an old woman who had this block and you had her rolling around on some stuff over Zoom. Yeah,
over Zoom. I was doing it. I still do some one-on-one right now with certain people who reach out.
Okay.
Eventually, it's going to be translated completely into a coaching program with different tiers, which we also include. I have a business partner. We include DNA testing in the beginning and blood panel, so that you have some metrics that it actually works. And I'm not afraid of that because I know it works. But saying that, with the story you just brought up, I had this older lady I worked with for a while, and she did a lot of fascia stuff herself, and then I just put her in certain positions and use those plyo balls. And it's really about body awareness, because when we create space with the breath and laying on some soft object, we can really focus and create space there. And when I focus on it with my mind as well, my intention goes there, and where intention goes, energy flows, and then all of a sudden the body opens up. So she was in pain for 15 years, and I got her out of pain within one session. The pain came back, granted, but the more she's going to do that, the less she'll be in pain, and she feels like a different woman. So, and it's one of many stories in a sense. I had one person I worked with. He had Parkinson's, and he had really bad tremors, and he was in his early 50s. After I told him what to do, I worked with him one-on-one. He did a lot of fascia stuff and breathing, and he actually went to his doctor, and the doctor said the Parkinson's reversed slightly, which is very, very rare to hear. So that it actually got better, and he cut down his medications. So it's really, just to sum that up a little bit, most of it is really stems from suppressed emotions.
Okay.
So every emotions eventually triggers something in your body, and the trigger most of the time comes into pain, whether it's chronic pain, and then the next step, which nobody wants, is like chronic illness.
Okay.
So I had my dad very disconnected emotionally from myself, from everyone, and himself. He developed rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease in a sense, and didn't take care of himself. Pretty much drank a lot of alcohol, worst diet ever, and he passed away 3.5 years ago from that. And this is also a pivoting point in my life where I was like, if I don't change myself, I run into the same problem. Yeah, I'm not drinking, but I still abuse my body with crazy workouts, crazy diet routines, and just like not living my full potential because I'm so driven by ego. And when I made that shift, I just started feeling better and better. And now it's like every day I learn something new. Every day I meet someone new. Every day is something, okay, perhaps there's more cleanup to do. For example, I just did a one-day gut cleanse, gut reset, which I was always very skeptical about those kind of things, where it's like, for one day, I don't think you get many benefits from it. But this company, they have those one-day kits, and I did a liver cleanse from the same company in January.
Can you share the company?
It's called Zen Cleanse.
Okay.
So I don't know if you heard of them.
I don't know, maybe.
So it's basically you get this package sent. It's all sachets. You dissolve in water, and it comes with certain fermented fruit juices. It's basically traditional Chinese medicine. It's been around for thousands of years.
Great.
So, and the particular one I just did was to remove mucoid plaque in your digestive system. So the plaque that sits on your digestive tract, basically, on your colon around there. Because over years, whatever diet you follow and environmental and so forth, there's a lot of toxicity built up. Of course. So I was like, I felt I needed it, so I did it, and I'm still in awe how well that worked. I probably lost, on the scale, I lost 5 pounds of that stuff.
Oh my gosh! So how many days?
It was one day.
That's it.
It's
and you don't eat anything. You just
just drink that. But it's also, it's calories. You're not really hungry. And as I said,
that's fine.
I done a lot of fasting, and I don't really care. I still drank some tea and had a little bit of. Dude, it's unreal.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, no, the stuff that came out is, I'm not going in detail, but first of all, it was super nasty.
Wow.
But it also does something to you psychologically and on a spiritual level when you see the stuff comes out. You're like, wow, this was stuck in myself. And now it just feels much lighter. So
wow, okay.
There's a lot of things, because the way I look at the body and a person is really to, how can I get as much stress out of the body as possible in order to be fully alive and function proper. And the number one thing is really the breath, and then it comes to the hydration, mineralization, your water, because if you only drink plain still water, you strip yourself of minerals, which causes a dehydrated fascia, which causes stress in the body. So when you mineralize and hydrate your body proper, or you drink really good spring water, that's taken care of. And then when you breathe proper, that's taken care of. And then the next step is really what's your diet like, and how is your digestive system? Because we all know by now the gut is pretty much the first brain. And when you have too much buildup, you have a hard time connecting to yourself, because there's too much stress, inflammation. So, and I felt that, intuitively, I was like, I need to do that. So I did it, and I feel very, very different on a spiritual, emotional, and overall mood, just very, very clear. And it's, it makes sense. It's 5-6 pounds. It's a lot of stuff you have stuck in your system. So if you let go of that, there's a lot of old energy, emotions that go with this. So
I'm sold. I'm ready to do this thing one day. That's a no-brainer.
I did it. It's the best $250 investment.
That's a no-brainer.
I've done in years.
I should talk too, because one of my best friends is a acupuncturist, and so she's in her 6th year of TCM, all that stuff. She's just in Vietnam, and so I'll definitely have a conversation with her about it. I've been reading a lot of Taoism myself.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's, I think it predates some of the TCM, like some of the schools of thought. And actually this kind of leads me into, because in these books, I'm on kind of my second one. But in these books, the one I'm in right now, it talks a lot about sages of life, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with the term. Sort of just, and back in these times, in these, old, empires, these ancient empires, the royal families would have these sages that would essentially study life. These things that we're speaking about now, those formulas, or just generally the emotion. And it's interesting because, there's many of these people you can come across on social media, that have some sort of different niche and different thing like that. But we're talking at the restaurant, where we met and stuff like that. And obviously some of the content, it's like, and some of these people such as yourself are essentially these modern sages.
Thank you.
Right? Well, I mean, yeah, our teachers are amongst us everywhere, but you're specifically sort of saying, okay, I'm going to take this corner, I'm going to take this space, I'm going to keep this and hold this here, study these things so that, and then I'm in, and essentially just channel them out to you guys, right? And it sort of seems like it's just been kind of an interesting thing where I'm like, wow, like and in the book it specifically says this, there's these stock market people, there's these doctors, and there's these lawyers, and there's accountants, and all these different professions. Well, there's not enough people just studying life, and it hit me. I'm like, wow, these are some of these people I follow, or these yoga teachers. It could be anything.
Could be anyone, So that's really beautiful.
Just kind of a tangent, but
no, but it's true. And there's one book I can recommend to everyone. It's called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity.
Okay, great. So
Did you read this one?
I didn't, but that is a big part of why I've been drawn to some of this literature.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can possibly segue this into like a men's health conversation a little bit, but just because of, I had read this book, Tantric Secrets. Have you heard of that one?
I heard of it, yeah.
I read this one several years ago, recently reread it along with The Way of the Superior Man. I'm sure you've read that.
I haven't read that.
Okay. D8. I mean, it's an interesting one, but yeah, just general. I've seen you making some posts about it lately too, and it's just such a hard. There's no other way to just come out and say it. Have you had any experience with semen retention?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've done that. When I was in New York, I tried to hold it for a very long time because I didn't have a partner.
Right.
And now it's still, as we in our relationship, I do notice a massive shift when you just give away that all the time,
Right.
And
it's just one of those topics where there's no kind of way around it.
No, it's like, and it's the same as like, people don't want to talk about poop, but it's so important. And it's the same with this. It's like life force. It's chi. So how can I retain it without still having the pleasure, but retaining it? And that's really, I play around with it a lot, and I do feel more vital, clearly, when I retain it most of it, and it becomes also more sacred when you then eventually let it go. And we want to have a child this year, so if I can retain it for a long time, then might create a superhuman.
I was just gonna say, you very well might. That's hilarious.
But for me, it's in this book. They talk also a lot about. He's talking a lot about how less is more, especially when it comes to diet and how important the breath is, how important the colon is, so how important gut cleansing is, how important colon hydrotherapy and all those enemas.
Okay.
All this stuff is so important because if you don't get it out, it sits there. So and then you have a buildup. And as I said, after this experience, I feel like a different human. And now I'm just excited to see where this all leads to, because in a sense, if I can let go of all that, and now I'm like nourishing my body as I've always been doing, but my body can actually absorb it. That's a big part of the absorption of it. And to be really honest, it's been a few days only, and I'm way less hungry. I'm in a better mood, and I have more energy, and I feel better.
That's incredible.
So I just was on a phone call with a friend of mine. He lives in Spain, and he even said he met a woman. She lives in the Canary Islands.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't eaten in 30 years. So she's pretty much a breatharian. She still has some juice some days. And I believe there's over 30,000 people recorded around the world who live this lifestyle. So they live off the sunlight. Sunlight and breath. And
water. Right. They have to drink water.
Some of them don't even drink water. And this is a part.
I believe it. But this is right.
It's very, very advanced.
You have to have a very specific environment to do that.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's also a mindset. For me, I love food. I'm a foodie. I enjoy that. It's part of my life and what I want to do. And I'm never gonna go that route.
Sure.
As far as I feel right now. But with that, there's a lot to say about this whole calorie idea and how many calories you can eat and so forth. I don't buy into that anymore much. It's a lot about food is information and is energy in a sense, but it's also when you eat shitty food, especially when I did a post the other day about sugar, and because there's a large on especially on X on Twitter right now, there's a large group. You're familiar with Ray Peat?
I don't think so.
So he died, which is another topic. So he died in his 80s, and he was a big proponent of. It's called the metabolic community.
Mm-hmm.
So they all follow certain ways of living, but essentially you should always eat simple sugars all day long. So, and I tried that for a little bit recently, and I felt awful after 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's also a part of this is when you look at the human body, we all know over 90% have parasites, and over 90% of the people have some form form of a fungus in the body. So when you eat simple sugars, cane sugar, and everything, even excessive honey and so forth, you're feeding that fungus and parasites, and eventually what's going to happen, it's going to take over your mind and body in a sense.
Okay.
So you're addicted to that stuff, and people might lose weight because it might work for some, it might not, but it's not about the way you look, it's how do you feel. And then on an energetic level, I personally don't want to be depending on food to live optimal. So it's a very interesting topic to just like chat really quick about it, because I had questioned that in Twitter and it went nuts.
Oh, did you?
Because it's a very emotional topic to some people.
What did you say exactly?
I just said, so I said, I've tried this for 7 days, would really look like I would have a lot of fruit in the morning. I would put a lot of maple syrup or honey in my tea or coffee. And you have a sugar high, you feel good. And then I would have more sugar in the afternoon and carbs at dinner. After 5 days, first of all, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I was exhausted because it's a lot of load on the liver. So after a week or so, I just asked a question. I said, okay, I don't feel great. And how come Ray Peat died when this is supposedly the optimal way of living?
Oh, how old was he?
I mean, he was 85, granted. But still, it's like he didn't look that healthy over the last years when I studied it a little bit, or like very vital. And then they were like, oh, because he had a lot of stuff coming up in his younger years, which is okay. But anyways, for me, the goal was just to ask a question, and I get like bombarded, and like,
wow,
they went completely apeshit on me. And so it's just one of those things. It's another camp.
Right.
It's another community. When you start asking questions, they feel like you're attacking them, and it becomes more of a religion. And the bottom line is, it just drives people apart rather than unites them. And for me, it's like, I don't want to be part of any camp anymore. I want to just live a life. I want to share what I have to say. I want to help people. And from that place, there's no judgment. There's no assumption. There's just living in the end of the day. And that's really my mission with mindful movement, is in a sense helping as many people as I can to reach their full potential, perfect health, peak performance, and vitality.
Amazing. So, I think at times, like, this whole thing can be overwhelming, just being in the wellness, being on a journey and kind of realizing, it can be overwhelming. Like, it's a lot of, I guess, hiring someone, having someone lay out a plan for you, is helpful. But at the same time, you may not, like, that's a way to go about it. Or just, the way that I've been kind of dealing with some of my stuff is, like, take what comes to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if, like, I just get information, it's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Then I meet you and I'm like, this is interesting. Then we start talking about fashion and these balls, and like, you're going to send them to me. It's like, okay, great. Like, that's, or with social media now, it's like, it's so accessible. You can, but it's almost like, I guess, it's like you're only ready to kind of see what you're ready to see, in a way.
100%. I mean, there's this beautiful saying, it's just super old. It's the one who have eyes will see, the one who have ears will hear. And I always believe when the person is ready, the teacher appears. And that's really happened to me so many times in my life. But you only can see the teacher when you're ready for it and when you're present. And this is really, because otherwise it's a rabbit hole, the health, wellness. And now with the whole biohacking thing, there's a whole other tangent you can go down
and
to.
Everyone, and it gets a little out of hand sometimes, especially down in Venice and stuff. It's just like, it's like all these things. You're just like, and it's like, dude, it's actually like good water. I have just, I hate to sound like one of these like Pilates moms, but it's like, dude, it's just spring water. I can't do anything else. And sunlight and some of these movements, some of these natural movements, which we could get into a little bit, but it just gets a little,
it's like,
it's just more things. And sometimes like,
focus on,
like,
I mean, it's like focus
connect
on the
to the earth.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's
live with purpose.
And this is something I've been thinking a lot about too, with AI starting to kind of just the world, it can get kind of weird here. You know, we're in the next industrial revolution. It's coming, and it's coming quick, and some of the work you're doing, I think, is so important because it's going to become easier and easier for us to disconnect from the earth, right? Disconnect from our natural state. So someone like you is like, hey, like, it's almost like, you know, together we can kind of inspire, and you can kind of rewild in a way, right? Because like, it's going to be easier to not do stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right?
You see it with like AI, ChatGPT, everything. You can, so many jobs going to be gone like very fast, and automated and automation. So it's like, okay, like I'm starting to think like, okay, how can I use that time to go and like roll in the dirt or something? Yeah, exactly.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Because like, that's what I think. Okay, because what makes us separate from these computers, right?
It's a human, you know,
what makes us unique? And I'm just starting to like, and so that's why I think some of this work is pretty important.
It's very important because eventually AI can't listen to your intuition. You only can do that. You can use it as a tool, which I do too, and it's very, very powerful, and it helps, saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money in a sense. But it's also like you need to draw a line somewhere where it's like you still have to do the work yourself, right, if you want to evolve on a spiritual level or emotional and on a physical as well, because AI is not going to do the workout for you. AI is not going to go for a walk for you. AI is not going to do the breath exercises for you.
Right.
So there's certain things which, and then AI is also not going to be inspiring you. Mm-hmm. Meaning, yes, even if you have robots, right, and like they look like humans, the human connection is not going to be there because the robot looks in your eyes and there's nothing.
Right.
So
right.
the energy field around us is never going to be able to be replaced.
Exactly. I completely, yeah. And I've been spending time thinking about that, and I just thought, you know, I think that this is, it's something that's super important, and it's happening. I'm not one of those people, and I don't see you. I see you're obviously very aware about how to use the technology for your advantage. But it's like we could go and kind of like hide out and just like go back, or we could figure out how to integrate that, right? Integrate that to give us more human experience.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's really all it is about. It's, I mean, if I have to write on some form of a letter, email, you can always, AI takes a lot of time away from that. Calculations, all that stuff, just asking simple questions, digging deeper into what I'm actually doing, learning more. Like, I don't need to go to study traditional Chinese medicine in a school anymore. If you know how to ask questions, you get so much knowledge within seconds.
Right.
And then you implement it, and then it works, and then you're like, okay, this is what it is.
Right.
And then you have an understanding of the body. There's so many possibilities we can do. Same with anything in life right now. There's anything knowledge-based.
Right.
We live in a pretty amazing time.
I do agree with that.
I mean, it's like, if you feel like, think back 10 years ago, even like 5 years ago, it's impossible. Like the things I have now, the meetings I have with my business partners and the people I work with about building a business, they like 30 minutes. They would have been 3-4 hours. And then the work behind the scenes would be hours. And now it's like, if you give the right input into AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you want to use, you get an amazing output. And then you use it for your advantage, as you say. So we kind of, I think we're not going to change the world this is going to go away. It's just going to be bigger. Same with social media. It's never going to go away. It's going to grow. But how can we use it to our advantage and actually use it in a way we can help people and spreading the light a little bit more? And then it's a beautiful tool. And I don't feel it interferes with anything I'm doing or people in this field doing.
Totally. Yeah, I think if anything, it becomes more important to like get into this work, the embodiment practices, you know, because it just becomes more useful and hopefully more accessible for people.
And I feel it will, you know.
So I do want to ask, you're about to get married, you're with Caitlin doing all this stuff, and I met her through a mutual friend from the yoga community. And then obviously we ran into you guys. But on a 7-day fast, I wonder, did any, like, because I can kind of do that for a weekend here and maybe have some small interactions.
Yeah.
But it's really an inward few days, when I do like a 3-day thing or something. And I really don't want to be too social.
Yeah.
If anything, I'd rather kind of just be more silence, you know? But for 7 days, I mean, were you just up the whole time, or did you have those moments? And how were you?
Well, it's like I went into it with the intention, as I said, to connect to myself more. And I told Kate about this, and she's very accommodating always, and very holding space a lot for myself. But yeah, by day 4 or 5, you become a little bit irritable, maybe. And
irritable,
irritable, and she's like, I think it's time to eat. I said, no, I'm going to do 7 days.
Nice.
And is it ideal when you have a partner? Probably not. So now I'm scheduling my fast. So when I do something like this, most of the time when she's out of town.
Nice. That's a good idea.
Well, it's also more of a respect thing, because
right,
it's part of life to share a meal at least once a day. And when you do that for 1 night, 2 nights, it's great. But if you do it for like 3, 4, 5, 6,
right,
it becomes a little bit redundant, and then it's just not great for the relationship.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong. That just is. I still could do it, but it's for me. I just want to hold space and be there for my partner as much as I can.
You don't have as much to give.
Yeah, and that's exactly. And it's
right.
Otherwise it becomes an ego thing. If I need to do this, I don't give a damn what you say. It's not how a relationship in my eyes works. It's like a give and take. And if I want to do something for 2 nights, 2 days, whatever, it's no problem. But if you do it on an ongoing thing a couple of times a year, it becomes a little bit not so pleasant.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I have the luxury of kind of like shutting the blinds. Sometimes I want to do that, but with a partner, it just becomes. Yeah. I mean, she's obviously very supportive and wellness and everything like that. So okay, interesting. So like if someone were to reach out to you now with the movement, is that still kind of rolling out, or do you have?
We're launching the website in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then want to really get it all going within the next 2-3 weeks. And then I'm also going to do most likely a podcast, actually, mindful movement podcast. Mm-hmm. So this is a part to make people aware, and social media. I have a separate account which is for mindful movement. Okay. I have that for a couple of months now. I just removed all the content, so there's coming a whole new remake of that. Mm-hmm. And my personal content, my personal account is the easiest way to reach out, like Jules_Horn, and on Instagram. And I'm still gonna do partly what I'm doing, but mainly what the work is about, and podcasts I'm on and so forth. For me, it's just the goal is to reach as many people as I can, as fast as I can, so I can make a large impact.
That's great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. I'm just trying to think here. Yeah, I did. I think. Do you think there'd be like any like one school of thought? Because you like talked a little about TCM. I think I've even seen you like talk a little bit about like just. I think you're big into mindset. It seems like some manifestation stuff. Yeah. And clearly, I mean, for you to talk about your upbringing and kind of just coming from the middle class and not really having much to kind of being where you're at now, it's clearly a testament to like you just determination. You seem like you have a lot of focus. I guess in today's day, do you think you'd have one school of thought that you would subscribe to in a way? I mean, or not really? You're just kind of...
Well, the number one thing for me, it's one very important quality is really manners.
Okay.
So having manners, and so following through, but also not, as I said, the thing that I got brought up with was not changing, and as a person, so always being nice, being a good human being, because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you care about yourself if you treat other people like shit. So this is if you live somewhat in service for other people, and have a clear vision of what your life wants to look like, and you do something every day to get there quicker, better, faster, in a sense where, okay, I want to get a little bit more spiritual, so I need to sit a little bit more in silence and so forth. I want to feel better, eat better. So it's just, the bottom line is really be driven to become the best version of yourself so you can help other people.
Excellent. Right.
That's really what it is.
You spoke a lot about that indirectly, dark times, we alchemize them into light, pain into experience or wisdom, right? I like that a lot. So you're just, and I do want to say, I have noticed that I wouldn't have really guessed ever that you were kind of this person that was, I wouldn't have guessed that. And I have a really good kind of gauge on that sort of thing. It's hard for me to do the LA like fake thing. Like it's just like, well, like I just can't do. I can't. I'm unable to do it.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm the same.
I'm unable to like, and so I definitely appreciate that. That's a really good. I think everyone will appreciate that trait, and it's taken you pretty far thus far. So that's awesome.
Just getting started.
Would you mind if I asked you a question a little bit about my body?
No, of course.
Anterior pelvic tilt is kind of what I've been working through.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is that a common issue? Is that something common that you see? You talked a lot about not being supported.
Yeah,
I mean, back pain. That started hitting home for me. I went, whoa, that's...
So it's really just about when you're not feeling supported and you have too much fear in your body, which is from moving forward in my life. So it kind of pulls you forward, right? Energetically.
I was hitting home, man.
And then you have like your pelvic is tilted forward and your lower back is under tension. There's a lot of tightness in there. Right. So it's really just like creating space in that area and feeling safe. And this is, a lot of times it's also just assessing your body. Like, we have those hands for a reason. That's what I believe now too.
Right.
So we have those fingers. A lot of the things we have is the issues in the body stem from super tight neck and knots and everything up here.
Okay.
And I just started this a while ago. And when you give yourself assessment every day, meaning like you just move around and feel.
Okay.
That just signals your body you actually care. And then the more you care for yourself, the more you'll be able to let go. And if you combine it with proper breathing and different methods where you lay on your back and use those balls or just use the floor as a support and like just breathe into that area, it's really the number one thing is body awareness.
Okay.
So when you create awareness in your body, you're able to let go. And of course, there's way to, people go to the chiropractor's crack and so forth, but then 2 weeks later it comes back because you don't go to the root cause of the problem, which most of the time is really emotionally.
Totally. No, it's definitely hitting home. I mean, I get a lot of information from my yoga practice. Yeah. Like, I mean, from a variety of things, really. I mean, I could be on a dance floor and be like, oh, I need to like strengthen here and loosen here. Like, I just like... really it could come at any point, as you probably know. But lately I've been having my friend I've worked out some of the stuff here, strengthened a bit of core, like doing a lot more core to sort through some of that. Now, like I said, it will kind of come to you. This has been a big part of my journey, is like the stack. Like you talked about this a lot, efficiency, energy moving efficiently, body being optimal, mind being free, focus, etc. Well, it's really hard to do all those things when you have this aching or this misalignment. Yeah, right. The energy is not moving with, and I see a lot of these guys in the gym and doing all this stuff. They're like, boom, like they're jacked and all this stuff, but I'm like kind of looking. It's like, it looks like they're like, it's like, and I know how that feels because I know how that feels. Yeah, and so So, it's just been interesting. And I think like 3 months ago, I wasn't ready for certain things, but I'm ready for now. It's been this weird unraveling, man. Yeah. Yeah. And it's been really cool. And I think quite possibly that's, why you kind of cross paths with someone like yourself and many other people that I cross paths with. Yeah. And right now I have my friend poking. She'll probably come over in a couple hours. I have her needling my hamstrings. Yeah. Because I've been at a wall. I mean, I practice pretty regularly, and I have not gotten any freedom there for months.
Yeah.
You know, all sorts of different postures, you know, all sorts of heat. And I had her needle my hamstrings and the top of my calf, behind my knee and the top of my calf, just a week ago. What do you know? This week I have more, just a 5% gain, and I'm like, I can't believe it, because I've been at a brick wall for months.
And it's also a lot of the times it's about believing. So when you feel like you're stuck, you're actually not stuck. You think you're stuck, and then your body's not going to open further. So this is just, it was an indicator. Yeah, it works. Acupuncture works really well, but it's also something you believed it's going to work. So it's going to work. And then it works 5%, and you're like, wow. Now you started reassessing your mind, and your subconscious mind is trained like, wow, now it works. I can do that. It's like, it's very interesting, because words are very powerful. And one of the things we do with fascia maneuvers, there's one fascia maneuver, it's called anti-gravity, and it's just like it's just a full body full spine decompression, and the last part of it is to go down in a squat. You hold your hands like this, and you go down in a squat all the way as far down as you can. It's very interesting, because when you then, people go as far as they can, and they're like, I can't anymore. And I was the same, and I'm still the same. And then you start speaking out loud. You say, I'm safe in my body, and I'm safe in this position. Dude, every single person drops like 3-inch. Poop. It's just what it is. And this is something, because when we speak with our body, we shift our energy field, and then all of a sudden there's space. So I still have this thing. As for now, I tell myself I can't go down in a full squat. And certain times I forget about this false belief, and I'm down in a full squat. It's really, we put blockages in our own way with our mind.
Great.
So that's why having a still mind and being just present with yourself in the moment is the only thing that really opens your body and helps you release. And that's why when I work with people one-on-one, the first thing is I have them breathe for 10-15 minutes. And dude, you'd be surprised. All of a sudden people start crying just by being present.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like not wanting to feel that. So you just immediately go in and, okay, interesting. See, and a lot of those little ticks, and I'm sure it would take weeks to kind of unpack, you know, all those little tricks and things like that. I think one of the last things, and this is somewhat of a personal question, but obviously with hopes to like help or shine light or maybe get some wisdom from you, people, right? We're talking about changing our thinking. We're talking about focusing and moving and building a life. Have you had, I think there's a certain advantage to you moving, but being in the industry that you're in, and then kind of, but being in this, on this path, have you had to kind of have any moments of setting boundaries? Have you had to kind of leave people behind?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I mean, it's like an ongoing thing for me. It's so what I always say, and some people believe it's, oh, you're selfish. It's nothing to do with being selfish if you take time for yourself, or if you set boundaries. It's only self-love. And the more you elevate your life on a spiritual, emotional level, the more you want to be surrounded by people who speak the same language and are on the same wavelength. Because if you try to hang out with people who just not on that frequency, it's going to end up draining you. And I've experienced it over the last years always. And so now I'm at a place in my life where I'm like, okay, first of all, I've always been someone who likes to be alone. And I'm fortunate to have found a partner who's completely on the same level with myself. So it feels like you're alone, but you have actually your better half. So we to become one, and that's kind of what everyone is seeking, and I was lucky to find. And when it comes to other people, I'm just very selective in a sense, and also don't spend my time with people I don't want to hang out with. And I have no problem saying no. I'm like, this is not what I'm focused on right now. I don't need to do that. I don't need to spend time with anyone.
Interesting.
And if I do that once, it's fine. But then I'm like, it's okay. I'm not someone who doesn't give anyone a chance. It's more something where like, I give someone I spend some time, I have a conversation. A lot of times I pick up energy very easy.
Okay. Have you always been like that?
Yeah, I'm a good judge of character.
Okay.
And I can smell like shit from miles away. So if I feel like there's something fishy going on, I really want to deal with that.
Gosh, see, that's really interesting. I think that everyone has that intuition.
Yeah.
What I will say is, speaking for myself, there was periods of time where I would question it, right? And I think it was because my practice, my focus, like it just wasn't as sharp.
Yeah.
Through certain times, I wasn't in my breath and really grounded in myself enough to realize, hey, this is a sign here, buddy. You know, and I really like that. Sounds like through the work or through just you're like, dude, this is very clear. I'm not wanting to be here. Whatever it is. So. Yeah, I agree, and people do interpret it as selfish, but that's exactly right. It's like, what love do you have for yourself? And I had a really fun conversation with my friend. She's like, I really don't want to do this thing. I really don't want to do this thing. You know, a mutual friend asked her to get coffee. And I said, then don't do it. Yeah, you know, like she's like, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I feel like I have to, because he wanted, you know, long story, just... She felt obligated. Yeah. And it's just kind of like...
You don't have to do anything.
She's like, I know how I'm going to feel after. I don't want to... And I don't have, you know... She's like, it was the hardest thing for her. But she like said, let's do a phone call instead. They did a phone call. She's like... But it was just... It's hard for people, man. To choose themselves. To choose themselves. Part, They think there's this frame that they're a bad person or what have you. And I've been trying to, so it's refreshing, and you seem very well versed and kind of clear on like what that means for you. And
kind of have to. I paid my dues for that in a sense.
And how old are you now?
35.
Okay, great. And okay, great. 35. Okay, nice. Yeah. And the hair thing, I recently learned from a post of yours. It's.
It was also the same
energetic thing, right?
It was also when I had this whole moment with this pain where I changed my trajectory of my life. At the same time, I was like, I gotta cut off this hair.
Gotcha.
It was always like, I had once a shaved head, but it didn't last long. And now I'm just doing it on I'm not daily shaving it anymore, but it's really an energetic thing where I'm like, just shed the old and new. For a while, I did actually clean shave it, and it's kind of good feeling, but it's not the best for myself, and I'm like, okay, it's what it is, you know.
Okay, and then just curious, your modeling photos, are they with longer, like just
most of them?
I
still have some more recent ones with short hair.
You're just like you just get a job and you just let it grow as much as you can.
No, this is it. Like I don't really give a shit anymore.
That's funny. Cool.
My agent was like, you should grow it. I said no.
Cool. Okay, cool. Well, congrats on everything. Where are you guys getting married?
Topanga.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Is everything like
in
order up there with the fire and everything?
Yeah. Do you know Cafe 27?
I don't know if I know that. Maybe.
It's pretty popular, and they have next door, they have a location. It's called 1909.
Okay.
It's a wedding venue. Yeah, it's cool.
Very good. Well, congrats to you both. I mean, if I don't see you until then, you said it's about 2.5 months. 2
months, yeah. End of May.
Cool. Very Sweet. Cool. I just appreciate your time, and you guys know where to find Jules, Mindful Movement, or Jules _Horn.
Yeah, exactly. Jules _
on Instagram. Tons of good stuff on there. Yeah, man. Thanks again for your time.
Appreciate you, my friend.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you, brother.
That was so